Regional Solar Initiative, and this community solar webinar is also co-hosted by Walton EMC and the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. And I'm going to introduce our panelists, talk a little bit about logistics of the webinar, and then give some introductory comments, and then hand it over to the other panelists. So we've got a couple folks who are going to be talking to you today. Kate Daniel is Senior Policy Analyst with the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. She's based in Raleigh. And Greg Brooks is the Community and Public Relations Director for Walton EMC, which is in Monroe, Georgia. And I am coming to you from Atlanta. So we're all over the Southeast this afternoon. In terms of logistics, we are going to be recording this webinar, so we'll be emailing that out to folks in the next few days in case you want to get a copy of the slides or know folks who weren't able to join us today. If you have any questions, we're going to have some time at the end of the presentations for Q&A. So we're not going to be using the audio controls, so it's okay if you haven't put in your PIN number. You can just write your question in the chat box, and I'll field those up for the panel at the end of our presentations. We're hoping to leave maybe 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A at the end of this. And if you have any technical issues, you can also put those in the chat box, and we'll try to field those as we go. And with that, I think I'll kick things off. I'm going to give just a general overview of what's going on with this emerging trend of community solar, especially focused on the South and what's happening with cooperatives and municipal utilities. And then I'm going to turn it over to Kate. She's going to give more of a deep dive into program design around community solar and how this is taking shape in terms of different programs across the country. And then Greg is going to be talking in detail about Walton EMC's cooperative solar program and the great success that they've had and some of the lessons learned from their project in particular. And then we'll be doing Q&A at the end. To start things off, I want to just give an overview of why community solar is such an emerging opportunity. NREL has projected that only about 25% of residential rooftop area in America is actually suitable for rooftop solar. There are folks who are renting, living in multifamily housing, people whose roofs need replacing, small businesses that are leasing space and don't own their rooftops. So there's a huge segment of the market that really isn't able to tap into rooftop solar. And it's led to this emerging opportunity for community solar to fill that gap. I want to just give a brief overview of what community solar is. And it comes in lots of different shapes and sizes, but it generally looks something like this, where you've got three different elements. The participants who are paying for some share of the solar farm, and that payment can be structured in lots of different ways. Kate's going to talk a little bit about that. The solar panel electricity is distributed onto the grid, and then utilities are giving participants credit for their share of that electricity, typically on their bills through some kind of credit structure. And some of the elements that are particularly unique to community solar are the fact that this is typically a voluntary program for customers that they're electing to participate in. They're getting some kind of tangible direct economic stake in the project. So this isn't just a renewable energy or green energy tariff program. And that stake is tied to their investment in solar. And there are lots of reasons why customers are interested in participating in these. One of them has to do with the opportunity for savings. We've seen prices come down significantly, even with respect to community solar projects, which are a relatively new phenomenon. So in 2010, when we started seeing community solar projects, these were around $5 a watt for participants, and now the average costs are coming in under $3 a watt. This market is expected to have pretty significant growth. In the beginning of 2010, we were seeing a couple of projects. Now we're at over 100, and some projections are even higher than these. GTM projected that by 2020 we'd see 534 megawatts of community solar, but Navigant has projected that that might even be 3 times as high, around 1.5 gigawatts of community solar. So this is a market that is definitely going to grow. I want to take a moment and just talk about electric co-ops and municipal utilities in the South. This graph depicts the percentage of customers in each of these states in the Southeast who are actually served by co-ops and munis instead of by investor-owned utilities. And as you can see, this is a really significant amount of customers who are being directly served by co-ops and munis. And these utilities really have been the early leaders on community solar. So starting in 2006 with a municipal utility in Ellensburg, Washington, that launched the first community solar project, we've seen a really significant move by municipally owned and customer-owned utilities to offer community solar to their customers. So 15% of community solar projects and 31% of capacity are have been enacted by municipal utilities and co-ops, even though they're only 26% of the electrical providers around the country. They're actually administering 69% of community solar projects. And these smaller utilities are starting to come up with emerging best practices and figuring out how to address the risks of doing community solar and make sure that customer participation is high. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kate Daniel to talk a little bit more about community solar policy and program design.
Great. Thank you, Katie. So as Katie mentioned, this is a model that's becoming more and more popular, certainly across the Southeast, but also across the country. So this map just demonstrates that we're seeing this activity in states ranging from California to Michigan to Florida and all around. Now, as Katie mentioned, municipal utilities and electric cooperatives have been leaders in this sphere. And there are really 2 types, general ways in which community solar programs might be structured. One is that they might be led and sponsored by the utility directly, and that's really the dominant form that we're seeing in the Southeast. The states with the blue shading show where there are third-party-led community solar programs, where another company or entity or association of community members is running and developing the solar project itself. And typically, those operate in states where there is some statewide community solar policy or virtual net metering policy. Given that we don't have those state policies in the Southeast, that's one reason why you've seen the utility-sponsored form dominant. But as Katie mentioned, there's also a lot of reasons why this has been a really effective and good program for utilities and their members or ratepayers alike. So there are lots of ways in which a community solar program is structured. A lot of decisions that utilities have to make when they do decide to go forward with a program. This graph is taken from a SEPA document that outlines a number of solar program design models. It's a resource I highly recommend if you follow the link to it. And that will give a deeper dive into some of these considerations than we'll be able to get into today. Well, one place to start is to think about how the customer will engage with the program and how they will invest in the program. So there's 2 main ways of doing this. One would be through a monthly fee And in exchange for paying that monthly fee on usually a utility bill, the customer would receive bill credits for the energy output of a portion of the community solar array. The other option is that the customer would be asked to make one upfront payment at the beginning when they enter the program, and that payment would secure the output of a given number of panels or kilowatts for that customer over either the lifetime of the system or the program length, which might be determined to be 20, 15, 10 years, whatever the utility decides is appropriate. Now, the latter is a little bit most in line with the idea of, that customer might be thinking, gee, I'd really like to put solar on my home, but I don't own my home, or the roof won't support it. So I'm going to actually invest in solar panels located across town. The other advantage of that purchase or lease model is that it provides a lot more certainty to the utility itself, and that is a cushion in figuring out the budgeting and financial structures of the community solar program. On the other hand, utilities members or ratepayers may be a population that needs a little bit more flexibility, and in which case that subscription model may be a better fit for those individuals. In those programs, often the minimum length of participation might only be a year, and that allows customers who may move out of the service area or have a change in their situation to participate without a long-term commitment. We've seen most utility-sponsored programs to date follow the upfront payment model, although there are a handful of programs that are offering the subscription or ongoing monthly payment type model, and even a decent handful that are offering either option to customers. And the other thing to consider here is how those customers are credited for the energy output of their portion of the investment. Most utilities by far use a bill credit that is usually tied to a kilowatt hour basis. Some utilities, though, monetize the energy output and provide a separate line item payment to customers. Now, there's a number of other program design considerations that the utilities must make. And because I think the really exciting part of today's webinar is hearing from Greg and their experience at Walton EMC, we won't go into detail on these, but it is important to think, if you're considering a community solar program, about who should be able to participate, whether it's only residential customers, residential and small commercial, or other rate classes as well. Should think about whether there should be a limit to the size of the investment or participation that an individual customer can make, and if that should be tied to the customer's usage or in some other way. Also, how long should the program be? How long should you require a participating customer to stay in the program, whether that's through a subscription model or the upfront purchase model? You may also want to think about whether there's a risk of the panel production and performance. So if customers are credited based on a fixed amount projected from what you estimate the panels will produce, then the utility bears that risk. If the customer is given a variable output credit, then that lines up with the customer paying the financial input and the risk of the panel production. And most community solar programs do base the credit on the actual variable, actual day-to-day output of the system. You'll need to think about how bill credit should be valued, whether that would be at the retail rate that the customer pays for energy, an avoided cost rate, a rate tied to the value of solar, or some other way. Also, if the program is set up as an upfront purchase, is it appropriate for the utility to provide a non-bill repayment or other financing plan? How should the utility deal with customers who move out of the service territory or otherwise need to end participation? And along those lines, do you need to require a deposit for customers participating? It's important to think about how any costs of the panels, the portion of the system that's not subscribed, will be covered, and also to think about who will retain the renewable energy credits, either for compliance or to trade on a voluntary market, whether those would be credited to customers or retained by the utility. So that is a lot to think about, and we've just glossed over that. But the exciting thing is that we're really pleased to announce an opportunity to dive much deeper into these issues. So the Clean Energy Technology Center has just received a Department of Energy grant to engage in community solar programs for municipal utilities and electric cooperatives in the Southeast. This will be a 3-year effort, and it'll start with a collaborative stakeholder process to develop best practices and guidance on crafting community solar programs specialized for our region and for these particular utilities. And once that guidance has been developed on best practices, the project team will then be taking that out and providing deep dive one-on-one technical assistance to utilities to develop or implement programs. So we're really excited about this. Southern Environmental Law Center is a partner on this project, which we're really excited and grateful for. So I definitely encourage you to contact my colleague Tommy to get involved and to get more information. And with that, I believe we're ready to pass it on to Greg.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. It's a beautiful sunny day here, just perfect for talking about solar. I was very excited when Katie asked me to be a part of this webinar. I've been at our co-op for 30 years, and I know that those of you at co-ops and munis have rolled out all different types of programs from time to time, marketing programs, what have you, member programs, customer programs. And in my 30 years, I've never seen a program here that was more positively or enthusiastically received by our members as our solar program. So it's very exciting, and I hope by the end that your interest will be piqued, and this is something that you'll really consider doing for your customers or members. Okay, Katie, I don't have control maybe.
If you click on the main screen, I think you should have it.
Okay.
There you
go. Okay, there we go. All right. So let's talk about a little bit about why solar might be right for your utility. Well, we found out it's what our members and what your customers want. You'll see in a little bit when you look at how enthusiastically the program was received and how quickly we signed it up, how quickly we sold the subscriptions, or not sold the subscriptions, but got the subscriptions to the program. You'll see that there was a demand for it. And I think that our members are probably very similar to your members too. It makes participating in solar easy. And Katie and Kate have already mentioned about renters, people whose homes don't or aren't conducive to solar, and it makes participating just a snap for them. And one of our taglines that we used during the program was "Solar Made Easy," just to drive home that fact. We're adding diversity to our portfolio. Georgia doesn't have mandates yet, but our management is looking ahead, and we want to get a head start on that. I know some of you do, so solar is an excellent way to add a little diversity. Solar improves customer satisfaction, not only with the people who participate, but with all of your customers. Our co-op is big enough to be included in the J.D. Power survey, and their numbers consistently indicate that customers of utilities who offer a solar program tend to rate their utilities higher than those who don't. So it makes your customers happier. It improves your image because you'll get a lot of great PR and great PR opportunities out of your solar program. It's very interesting to the media, and you can take that to your advantage. And of course, it's good for the environment too. I want to talk just a second about why we named our program a cooperative solar program versus a community solar program. And Kate's already talked about the subscription model versus the purchase model. And we decided to go with a subscription model. And most community solar programs, it seems, have a pretty high upfront cost. So we wanted to make sure that our members knew that ours was a little different, that it wasn't going to cost a lot to get into the program. And as you'll see as I go on, we didn't immediately come to that revelation. We did call ours a community solar program for some time, and then we decided to change the name of it. But that's why we decided to go with a cooperative solar program rather than calling it community solar. When we started developing the program, and our CEO told us we were going to have a solar program, he also gave us some mandates that he wanted to make sure that the program included. And the first mandate was that price will not be a barrier to participation. He wanted this program available to almost all members. And the example he used was his young daughter that is not too far out of college, and she wouldn't have a large chunk of money to invest in a solar project up front. And he said, I want to reach that type of person as well as just all other members. I want someone who may be on a tight budget or may not have a lot of disposable income. I want them to be able to participate and it be reasonable for them. Another mandate he gave us is that he wanted it to be a simple, easy process to participate. He didn't want a lot of technical or lengthy documents that they had to sign and submit to us, or any very complicated scheme. He just wanted it really to be accomplished with one phone call, and the member would be signed up to participate in our program. And the other thing that he wanted to make sure that when members receive their bill at the end of the month, that they could look at it and it would be easy to them to see what their solar production was, and it would be easy for them to understand how it benefited them and how it figured into their bottom line payment at the end of the month. So those are some of the things that we kept in mind as we went about the design of our program. So we start our education process. And months before we actually announced that we were going to do any type of solar, we decided to go ahead and, in our member communication, to go ahead and just do some general generic solar education. So this is the first piece we put out. And we put this out in our paper newsletter, our e-newsletter, our website. And it's basically just how does solar work, how does the solar panel work, how is it connected to the grid. And if you'll notice in the bottom left corner, we do give a little mention to community or shared solar. But before we even eked out a word of our projects, we wanted to go ahead and start priming the pump and generate excitement for what was coming. We followed that up with our next piece, which was solely on community solar. And we still were generic. We still didn't say that, your co-op's going to do this. But this is when we started getting email. They said, wow, you guys ought to consider doing something like this. And so even before we announced, the excitement was starting to build and people were becoming interested. And one of the things that we really used during our whole campaign was the advantages, and you see we started with that here over toward the left side. We've got the community solar advantages or shared solar advantages, and we hit on those pretty hard during the whole process to remind people why this was good for them. So we did come up with our pricing, and this is the model we decided on. The pricing would be $25 a month. We estimated that each portion of the solar project would produce between 180 and 260 kilowatt hours per month, and there would be no contract. There was some back and forth among the staff about the contract. A couple of opinions were that, well, if we don't require a contract, that people are going to game the system. They're going to learn what the high production months are, and they're going to learn what the low production months are. They're going to jump on when we're having high production months, and they're going to jump out when we hit the low production months. Well, we've seen that has not been the case. Our demand for the program has been so great that if you come out, chances are it will be quite a while before you'll be able to get back on because of the waiting list we have. So that has not been an issue for us. So if you're dissatisfied, you call us. The next month you'll be out of the program. One thing about the $25 a month that you might want to be aware of is we ran into this situation with our CSRs. We learned that in the early stages of the program, when we started sign-ups, that they were telling our members that this is going to be $25 extra on your bill per month. Of course, we were horrified because that's not the case at all. You're getting energy for that $25. And so we had to re-educate them to make them understand that, no, this is not going to make your bill go up by $25. Some months it'll go up a little bit. Some months it'll go down a little bit. So that may be one thing that you want to make sure if you do a program similar to this, that you make sure those CSRs understand exactly from the beginning how the program works, and it's not going to add a big amount to the bill. We had a reporter that did a report on us, and he said our sign-up program was a throwback. And what he meant by that is that we decided to only take sign-ups by telephone. The reason for that is because we wanted to talk to each member that signed up. We wanted to thoroughly explain the program to them, and we wanted to make sure that this program was going to meet their expectations and that the program was right for them. If they didn't understand the program, or if it really wasn't what they needed, we didn't want them to sign up for it. We wanted to make sure it was really going to meet their needs. So there's no online sign-up. You can go online and get information, but you can't sign up. Now, what we allow is we allow them to automatically sign up for 2 blocks or 2 portions with no intervention from anyone. So you call up, you can automatically get up to 2 blocks. You can get more than that. If you would like more than 2 blocks, what we do is we kick that call up to a staff member, and what they do is they actually pull the member's energy use history and take a look at it and see what their average use is. And if it comes out that the number of blocks they sign up for will not exceed their energy use, then we'll allow them to have as many as they want. But we don't want them ending up with a lot of excess solar energy that they paid for that they're not actually using. So we kicked off and announced our first project. This was in April of that year. You can see at the time we're still calling it Community Solar. We hadn't come to that revelation yet. We decided we were going to change the name. We wanted to have energy flowing by July 1st. We want a very tight timeline, and I'll say a little bit about that a little bit more about that after a while. But we want a very tight timeline to get it up and get it going and get it producing. We'd dedicate a whole newsletter to that first project announcement. We did know some things. We knew what kind of panels we were going to put in. We knew how many panels we were going to put in. We knew where it was going to be. We acquired a 6-acre tract right beside our office that happened to become available, so that was very convenient for us, especially with this first project, so we could learn. But we still didn't know exactly about sign-ups at that point. we still hadn't set a price at that point. So there were some things we still hadn't worked out when we announced we were going to do it. But you'll see in the middle of that sun there, that was our unique factor, or maybe our hook for the media, because at the time, we were going to be the largest community solar or cooperative solar installation east of the Mississippi River. So we felt like that was our unique take on it, and that would maybe get us some media attention. So we use that quite a bit too. Of course, I just want to show you some other vehicles we use that you are all familiar with. We did use our Facebook page quite a bit. We did post as progress came along, as construction progressed, as new things were, as new factors of the program were decided upon. We put those out to our members through those methods. Of course, we developed a printed piece that we used at civic meetings and trade shows and venues where that would be the most appropriate means of communication. And I'm sure that you all are familiar with these and know when to use different vehicles. Our website, our solar program is very prominent on our website. We have 3 rotating banners at the very top, and our solar program is one of them. So we keep it in front of our members as much as we can. Even though you can't sign up online, we do have a page on our website that gives information, gives videos, gives extra details about the program. And at the bottom, it does tell you how to sign up by calling us. So we also use traditional media to get the word out. And we hit on those, again, on those advantages of community solar in our media outreach. And we did get some good coverage. We got print coverage, we got radio coverage, we got TV coverage. And I'll tell you a little story about our TV coverage. We actually opened sign-ups on June the 1st. And we were going to, like I showed you in the earlier article, we were going to be producing energy by July the 1st. So we've been going on about, I think it's about 3 or 4 days in June, and the phones had been ringing. We had already sold, I think, about 400 of our 750 blocks in about 3 days, so we were elated. The sign-ups were going great. So we had a consumer reporter in an Atlanta TV station get hold of the story, and he's particularly interested in renewable energy, so he came out and did a live remote. And you can see that it ran about 5 o'clock there with a little clock on the screen. And this was the 4th day of sign-ups when he actually came out. And so the story ran about 5 o'clock. Our call center is open until 7, but our staff is reduced at 5. So from 5 to 7, we don't have as big a staff as we do the rest of the day. So they left, the truck left, and I went in the call center, and I was kind of met with looks like, what did you do to us? Because the phones were absolutely going crazy. They took all the calls they could take until 7. When the call center opened back up at 8 the next morning, they were busy again. So that day we sold out the first project of 750 blocks. So we were just very, very excited and happy. Another part of our PR program that we get asked about quite a bit is a time-lapse video that we did, and this is very good for like civic presentations and on your website and places like that. I put the link down there, but that link is not very easily rememberable. So if you want to take a look at it, there's a lot easier way. Just go to youtube.com/EMCTV. That's our YouTube channel, and the video is there. Of course, you can email me for the link too. I'll be glad to give it to you. But the reason I want to talk to you about the time lapse is because it might be a lot easier to do than you think, and it might be a lot less expensive to do than you think as well. Because this is the camera we used. My coworker researched and found this. It's a Breno time-lapse construction camera. It's made just for this. It comes with a weatherproof housing. It comes with its own mount, as you can see right there. And you also can see that it's less than $200. And it does a great job in us being utilities, all of us, it's probably easy for us to find a pole and find somebody to go up and mount it for us at a good angle. And Breno's technical help was excellent because we told them how long we expected the project to last, and we told them how long we wanted our movie to be, and they told us the interval at which to set the camera to make it come out just right. So a lot of people ask us about this, but it's easy and cheap to do. Another part of our outreach is when somebody comes on the program, we send them a welcome packet. One of the things that we let them know is that we have these yard signs that they're welcome to come by the co-op and pick up and put in their yards to let their neighbors know that their home is powered by cooperative solar. We debated on this. We debated about whether to mail these or not, what exactly to do. But the stick to this thing is 2.5 or 3 feet, so you can imagine the size of the box we would have needed. And by the time we did that and paid UPS or whatever, we decided it might be just better to let them come pick them up, because probably most of our members are within, I'd say, 15 minutes at least of one of our offices. So most of them in the course of business or course of the day, they'll come close by anyway. So if they want this to brag to their neighbors, they can come by the office and we'll let them have one of those. Of course, another part of our PR program is site tours. I hope you'll include this. If you do community solar and yours have a lot of interest of school groups and others, this is a class from the University of Georgia Environmental Sciences. They came out to take a look at our project. So that's very popular and helps get the word out. Just a little bit about some of the construction techniques. The construction is pretty rapid. You would think that they would install these panels one at a time, but what they do is they string them together in modules of 5, and then they haul them over to the frames and put them up. This is an inverter, and what an inverter does is changes the DC electricity coming out of the panel into AC that goes out onto the grid. And just a PR aspect of the inverters is that we've got a solar facility in the lower part of our county that's about 300 acres. And they decided to go with one huge inverter instead of many smaller inverters. And so when the solar panels are really cranking, you can hear, I guess you might call it a whine or a squeal out of that inverter, and a lot of the neighbors have complained about it to the county commission. So when we were going for our rezone, that's one of the things that they were really sensitive about, was the sound that we would be generating and might affect the neighbors. Well, these small inverters produce virtually no sound, and if you walk right up to it, you might hear those fans on the side moving air. But as far as any negative effects or negative feelings from the neighbors, you won't have that with small, multiple inverters rather than one large one. So this is the completed project. You can see this right beside our office. There's our warehouse up in the top left of the photo. And I got really excited when I heard that we were going to use this piece of land, because as you can see on the top right of the photo, a major 4-lane highway runs right by our office that connects Atlanta to Athens. So, I was dreaming of signage and a lot of visibility for the project, but our management decided to leave those trees as a buffer there, so you can't really see it. But oh well, we still got the publicity and got the word out. But that's one of our parts of our PR plan is our signage that we really didn't utilize. We do have a dashboard on our website where members can go on and see in real time what the output of the project is and how much energy has been generated. So this is June. We're opening up sign-ups. We have come up with all the specs for the program, the way it's going to work. And as I told you before, it just took us a few days to sell that out. So in July, we had already decided to build a second project. And so when we actually started producing energy from our first project, we put that word out. But we also put out, hey, we know the demand is great, so additional solar is coming. So just hang on. So just a summary of the first project is 1 megawatt, 750 blocks. Those 750 blocks were taken up by 433 subscribers, so we had many people subscribe to more than one block. It was sold out before completion. Not only was it sold out, we had a waiting list for the second project. It's interesting to see now what actually happened versus what we projected. So this is the output between August 2015 and August 2016, and you'll see that our projections were pretty close. Actually, November and December 2015 were anomalies. I understand that the irradiance in the southeast was at an all-time low those 2 months. So if it had been a normal month, it had probably been very close to our projections. And then you can see as we get toward April, May, that really it's outperforming our projections in a lot of months. Here's the announcement for our second project. It's 2.5 times as big, 2.5 megawatts. 1,500 of those blocks, as you can see over toward the right, were already subscribed out of the total 1,875 before it went online. So this is a picture of it. It sits on a 43-acre parcel about 6 miles south of here, fully up and operational, fully subscribed. 1,875 blocks, and those 1,875 blocks are subscribed by 1,110 members. It was sold out too before completion, and we still have a waiting list for our third project. And we just got word that I think we're close to negotiating our third piece of property, and I understand it's going to be 2.5 megawatts as well. I'll just divert a little bit here. We had a couple of VPs that were very skeptical about the project. They said nobody's going to subscribe to this. Nobody's going to be interested. So our CEO bet them that, well, okay, if it subscribes, then you can go out and clean the panels. If it doesn't, I'll go out and clean them. So we've got 2 VPs sometime that when the panels need cleaning the first time, we're going to go out and all watch them clean those panels. So this is a little bit about how billing works. Let's say that the account used 1,700 kilowatt hours this month. Let's say that they're part of the solar energy field, produced 230 kilowatt hours. So they would actually be billed on our regular rate for only 1,470 kilowatt hours. The other 230 would, of course, already been paid by their $20 subscription fee to the solar program. And here's how it looks on an actual bill. You can see this particular month that this member used 678 kilowatt hours. Their part of the solar facilities produced 277 kilowatt hours. So they are only billed at the regular rate for 401 kilowatt hours. And that's, I think that's pretty straightforward on the bill, and it lets them see exactly what their participation does. So I already mentioned Project 3. We've heard that it's going to be 2.5 instead of 3, and we already have 719 blocks spoken for from 429 different subscribers. I expect that when we put the word out that we have closed on the land for the new project and push sign-ups again, I hope we'll sell that one out too. I had just a couple of other comments I want to quickly make in closing. Since the program has begun since we started producing in July 2015, we have had 150 members that represent about 280 blocks who have left the program. 20% of those either moved or passed away or some other reason that they had to come out of the program. 80% just decided that the solar program was not for them. So if you take that number into the total number that we have subscribed, that's about 7% attrition. And if you deduct the people who moved away or just physically could not participate anymore, that's leaving about a 95% satisfaction rate of people who are staying with the program. The other thing I wanted to talk about was how the program has been great for the morale of our co-op and our employees. Every department in the co-op was touched in one way or another with something they had to do for this project, whether it was us in getting the word out, whether it was the billing department figuring out the billing part, the engineering department. It just goes on and on, that everybody had a piece of this project. And so it really drew our employees together to work together to get this done on the tight time frame that we were assigned. And it's been so positive that it's a really immense source of pride for us and our co-op. So I hope that you've seen the positive aspects of the program. I really can't see any negatives for us so far. It's been a well-received program, and I hope you're excited about it, and I hope it's something you'll consider. So, Katie, that's about all I have.
Thanks, Greg. So at this point, we're going to transition over to questions. And if you have a question, please just go ahead and enter it into the chat box, and I'll be able to see that and tee it up for our panel. I'll start with a couple of questions to get us going. And Greg, the first couple of questions I think might be best answered by you. Can you speak a little bit about what the magic of $25 a month is? How did you come up with that number, and what impact do you think that particular price has had on participation?
Well, I guess the magic to it was that's what our CEO decided it was going to be. So he just felt like that was a price point at which most people could participate. But I really feel that is key to the success of our program, is having that very reasonable entry point to participation. And like I said, it's turned out that we figure if you average the entire year, it's probably only $1 or $2 extra per month for the member. So, I think affordability is really the key.
And as a follow-up, I imagine that y'all might sell out your full third project, but if you don't, do you have another plan for the unsubscribed capacity? Will you just add that power onto the grid for the benefit of all customers, or do another marketing push?
What we're looking at now is that up to this point, it's only been a residential program. And, of course, if you're in the utility business, commercial rates are a little more complicated. You have demand to figure into that, and it's a whole different rate process. But what we've been kicking around is if residential demand sort of wanes, then we may start allowing small commercial to subscribe to the program.
Greg, another question for you. Do you have thoughts on the interest of customers based on location? It seems like your first project was more visible right next to your headquarters. The second one is further away, but it's a larger project. Did that seem to have any impact on whether customers were interested in participating?
Being located a little ways from our headquarters, I don't think did, but I do think that the projects actually being located within our territory and within our communities have an appeal. I think that it's more maybe concrete and tangible to the members if there's somewhere they know they can drive by and actually see those panels, see them in the field that's not far from their home, that is appealing to them, as opposed to maybe a solar project hundreds of miles away that they really have maybe no idea or no tie to where they are.
Another question for you, Greg, and then maybe a more general question for Kate. Have has Walton considered an incentive or discount to have stronger direct bill benefits for low-income customers? And also for Kate, is that something that you're seeing other community solar programs look at?
We haven't at this time.
And Katie, I can't speak to any specific examples of utility-sponsored programs, although I'm sure that there are some out there. But there have been some state-level policy designs that have started to look more carefully at that issue. It's something that Oregon is developing in their program, and other states as well, to carve out a portion of a required number of community solar offerings that are available for specifically low-income or moderate-income customers, and to make sure that the participation in those programs matches those needs. So it is something that is starting to emerge as a more popular aspect of program design.
Yeah, I definitely find that to be true as well. And the other thing I'll mention is that in South Carolina, two investor-owned utilities, Duke Energy and SCE&G, are both launching community solar projects that will have special carve-outs for low-income customers and additional incentives to facilitate greater participation among those customers. So I think we're starting to see that pop up across the region too, and especially in looking at ways to make sure that these customers have meaningful access and are really able to get some kind of economic benefit from participation. Another question, and sounds like this may be for you too, Greg, is the price point $25 going to change as costs come down via lower panel cost or lower per unit cost realized from building larger projects? And if so, does this incentivize customers to wait or potentially incentivize them to switch from the more expensive project to a cheaper, newer project?
I don't think the price will ever change. I think the amount of energy could change, but as far as newer projects and lower cost, as these projects come online, what we're going to do is we pool them. So it really wouldn't be fair for somebody who subscribed later to be able to have a reduced cost as somebody who was an early adopter. So we just feel like that it should be all pooled and then distributed like that.
And that's consistent with what I've seen other utilities do too, especially when you're using the subscription model to just average out the cost of the program across the board, so that as the program gets cheaper as a whole, all of the customers are able to benefit from that regardless of when they got into the program. Another question, is Walton EMC able to make use of the federal ITC in its solar programs, and does it have to partner with another entity to do so?
We actually have a for-profit subsidiary that's wholly owned by the co-op that we use to take advantage of the tax credits.
Another question about Walton's program. Is Walton expecting to be made whole financially on the cost of the facilities over the life of the projects?
Yes, that was one of the mandates from our board of directors, is that non-participants would not bear any of the costs. So the rates and so forth were figured, I think it was 20 years was the time period they used. But yes, the participants will carry the cost of those facilities.
Greg, can you speak to what you felt like was most compelling in terms of marketing messages to customers?
Yeah, I think being able to easily get into solar production I think was a key message. One thing we pushed, and I've alluded to it a couple of times, were the advantages of being in a community solar program or a cooperative solar program. That maybe you had big oak trees at your house that you didn't want to cut down to be able to put solar panels at your house. Maybe you were a renter. Maybe your subdivision had restrictive covenants, or maybe several other reasons why you couldn't actually do or have your own solar panels. So we were going to make it easy for you to be able to still participate in solar energy production. So solar made easy, I think, was one of the key marketing messages. And then, of course, our affordability, I think that was another key. And I think, too, with the facilities actually being here in the community and local that people could drive by and see, I think was another key to our success.
Sounds great. Well, we're getting to the end of the hour here, and we've gotten through our questions. So I think with that, we can wrap things up. I want to say a special thank you for Kate and Greg for taking the time to put this together. If folks are interested, we've got contact information here. Please feel free to get in touch with any of us about additional questions that you have, and especially be sure to follow up with Tommy Cleveland if you're interested in their DOE grant that they're going to be kicking off soon. I think that's going to be a really exciting project. And also we'll be recording the webinar today and circulating that by email over the next few days, so you'll have that available. But with that, I just want to thank everyone for your time, and hopefully this has been educational and informative. Have a great day.